Welcome to our second Global Encryption Day. My name is Kodishang Tshwaane. Just trying to get our camera right here. So we are Internet Society South Africa chapter, and today we're hosting our Global Encryption Day. We have a lineup of very interesting speakers and presentations for you. But just to get started, I thought that maybe I could share my screen and show two videos from Global Encryption Coalition. And then we can then hand over to our chairlady, Thoko Miya. So let me just share my screen real quick.
What kind of future do you want to live in?
A future where your messages and pictures can be seen by anyone.
Or one where only those you choose get to see what you share.
A future where privacy doesn't exist,
putting you at risk in daily situations.
Or one where privacy is protected and where you and your loved ones can have a worry-free online life.
A future where something as simple as a baby monitor could be turned against your family.
Or a future where your devices belong to you alone.
If we protect what's ours, the future could remain as hopeful as ever.
Join us on Global Encryption Day.
The decision is in our hands.
Together, we can protect the future.
In a world where personal information is increasingly vulnerable to cyber threats and privacy breaches, encryption serves as a shield, allowing the public to safeguard their digital lives. Encryption makes people powerful, yet this freedom is under attack from governments across the globe.
As a mom, end-to-end encryption makes me feel powerful because it gives me choice over how I share my kids' information. It allows me to protect his privacy from anybody that wants that information that I don't want to give it to them. It gives me certainty that when I share a photo of my little guy, it's going to the people I want it to go to.
Encryption is empowering parents all over the world to help them safely navigate their children's digital lives. Children are more online and connected than ever before, accessing the digital world for education, socializing with friends, and communicating with family. As children of all ages use the internet, it becomes more vital than ever to ensure that digital communications remain protected. Encryption acts as a shield, allowing children to share, explore, and learn in a secure environment.
End-to-end encryption is a tool used by a lot of different services, and it helps to ensure that children's communication, their text messages, their pictures they send, their location information that is embedded in those pictures only gets to the people that it's supposed to get to. Encryption can help safeguard children's location information. But imagine there is a company that wants to know where your child is to send an ice cream truck directly to where they are. I don't think that the ice cream truck company should get to know exactly where my child is at any given time. Whatever company wants my child's location information does not have a right to it. And encryption ensures that it is not the default setting. As parents, we set up systems and tools and protections early in life that they aren't going to need until later, which is why I set up the norm when he was born with his entire family that they don't put pictures of his face online. And the same thing goes with using encrypted tools, making sure the grandparents and the aunts and uncles and the godparents and the friends know what your boundaries are for your child and respect them, and you have the tools you need to ensure they can respect them. I've worked with law enforcement as part of working with survivors of human trafficking. I worked for the Attorney General's office in California. I know all the arguments for ending encryption that are constantly used to argue this agency should have a back door, this law enforcement should have a back door, this corporation should have a back door. People who work at those places are people. They have just the same amount of vulnerabilities to becoming abusive towards others as any other human. They don't have a right to know what my kid says. They don't have a right to see his pictures. They don't have a right to know where he is. Encryption protects children in different ways at different ages, 0 to 13. In those ages, encryption protects children by protecting information about them that is provided by the people around them. When we're looking at the category from when they've got their first phone onwards, encryption protects them by protecting those 3 categories of information: their photographs, their messages, and their location information. Encryption is a good idea for a lot of people, but sometimes it's life or death. To me, it is very dangerous to teach children they are not allowed to have privacy for their own thoughts, their own ideas, their own images. That's not the way I want my son to be able to live.
So yes, welcome once again to our Global Encryption Day. Those were 2 videos that I wanted to put across. The second one is very relatable to parents, uncles, aunts, and everybody that has siblings. The first one was very straightforward, talking about devices, intrusive devices that we let in our house. Recently in the media, there was a vacuum cleaner company that had a camera that was hacked and it was taking photos and videos of people. So the things that we buy, we need to understand how they function and so forth. But without wasting any time, I'd like to hand over to Ms. Miya, who is the chairlady for Internet Society South Africa chapter, to do the welcome for us. Thank you.
Good morning, Kodishang. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mondli in Durban. Hi, Safe Hub, Remote Hub. It's a pleasure to be here. I am super excited for us to be hosting this day. I think our chapter, our leaders, everybody, we've gone through so much in order for us to be able to get to this point. As a chapter, there's so much that we still have planned. So just to introduce us, we are the ISOC South Africa chapter. We are Internet South Africa by name. And what we do is we as the South Africa chapter are dedicated to building a better and more inclusive internet for everyone. We focus on making sure that the internet remains open, globally connected, secure and trustworthy, and it acts as a resource for all. Our work is driven by 3 key principles. Number 1, promoting internet access. Number 2, advocating for strong internet security. And number 3, fostering community engagement. In promoting internet access, we believe that everyone, no matter who they are, where they live, what their age is, what their circumstances are in life, should have access to the internet. And to make this vision a reality, we work with initiatives that improve connectivity in underserved and rural areas. Somebody was talking to me recently and they said, we don't use the word underserved because it makes it seem like it's a government problem. So what we should say is underprivileged. I'm just going to go with that. From training communities in digital literacy to supporting local projects and towards also expanding internet infrastructure, we're on a mission to bridge the digital divide in South Africa. The way we do this is we advocate for community networks, we advocate for more provision of your smaller internet service provider, your internet infrastructure providers, domain names, your network operators, your basically everyone and everything that's got to do with the internet, and largely based on its infrastructure. So people who work with the URLs that internet has, like a lot of our members sell URLs, your www.soandso.com. A lot of our members are selling those packages. So if you go online and you find those, most of those people are members. They're also selling your internet packages. So like when you buy 5 gigs of data, but not your big mobile network operators, your MTN, your Vodacom. We largely work with the smaller guys in the community. Your Too Much Wi-Fi's and other smaller internet providers. Some of the people that are reselling Vumatel, reselling HeroTel, whatever, those are our members. And we're basically working with them to improve the infrastructure, to change the diverse landscape of those jobs, because these jobs, in terms of the internet, largely you find that there are huge skills gaps, and there aren't people that are able to fill the skills gaps because maybe a particular job has been done by the same person since 1992 or since 2004. And this person is aging, and the entire infrastructure is based around them. So it's about looking also at how do we create an ecosystem that has awareness, but also from our more expert in ecosystem partners that are able to look into these positions. The second part that we do is advocating for internet security. So in today's world, security is a top priority. Obviously, we all know that most efforts on digital transformation are leading to data protection, encryption, and cybersecurity. And this is what makes people safe online. So today is Global Encryption Day, and we're running this webinar as a training, as a workshop designed to empower individuals and businesses, designed to act as a resource in future for policymakers to protect their online data and to uphold a secure internet environment. A lot of the events that we organize throughout the course of the year are actually advocating for particular issues. We had earlier in the year Universal Acceptance Day. It was a training, it was an awareness, it was an advocacy for greater universal acceptance towards a multilingual internet. A large part of what we do is on this framework, and then on framework 1 of the ecosystem building of your technical infrastructure and community. The last part is fostering community engagement, and that would be very much clear. We are a community-driven organization, and we bring together internet enthusiasts, tech professionals, internet tech professionals, policymakers, and everyday users of the internet who care about the future of the internet or have an interest in the internet through events, discussions, webinars, local initiatives, and we create spaces where people can share their ideas, learn from experts, and shape the internet's future. So specifically in this case, when we talk about the internet, we're not talking about, in most cases, the tools that people build or the products that we consume from the internet. We're talking about the background of that. Take all the products off, that whole ecosystem that's left over, that's largely what the internet society deals with. And I think the most important part is that we need you, we want you, we would like to hear from you. We are community-led, and I mean, if it sounds like you're interested in what we've just said, if you're a student, if you're a professional, or someone passionate about making the internet or technology better and available for all, then please join our community, find out more about what we're about. You can find us online at internetsociety.co.za, am I correct? internetsociety.org. So this is the steps that I would like you to follow if you would like to join us. First and foremost, go to internetsociety.org, right? And from this website, you will see a group of little kids playing in Nepal. And You will have a couple of options. You may accept or reject the cookies per your preferences, but there is an option on this website of internetsociety.org to member login. So here you would be able to join the Internet Society through the member login tab. So you click the member login tab. I'm sorry, Kodishang, am I able to share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how to do that. Okay, there we go. So yes, let me just show you how to do this so that when you do it later on your own, it will be a whole lot easier. So I believe you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can.
So you would go to internet.org. I just want to show you how I got to this page quickly. This is how you join as a member. You go internet into your URL browser, you type internetsociety.org. Very simple, .org. It will clearly come up and it shows that it's promoting, building, and defending the Internet Society. Once you get to this page, you would be on a page like this. These are the little kids from Nepal I was talking about. And it speaks to our 3 pillars, as well as there are some other resources. There's a blog and there's some individual numbers that you can look at. At the bottom of the page, there are a whole lot of resource links and documents that indicate towards more about the Internet Society. I think if you're joining, please get involved and check out all these independent links. Everything from the Internet Foundation to Internet Registry, resource libraries. These are big words, but if you start reading a little bit about it, all the information starts right at the beginning of the topic. So you might not know what the Internet Engineering Task Force is right now, or you may know, but the point is the information is available to everyone from advanced, extreme advanced, right down to your basic ecosystem. So from here, there are 2 ways to get to it. There's this little icon, and then it would take you to some type of a login page. I have an account, so I'm able to sign in, but you can also say sign up now just over here, and it will give you an opportunity to sign up for this account. So basically here you would enter an email address, preferably your own email address. Click the part where you're not a robot, and then it will take you to a page that is a profile. So from there you would input your profile information, and then from the profile information, it would give you an opportunity to apply for various chapters and groups. From that, please apply to join the South Africa Internet chapter. We will be there. We are the same people that do the approvals. But once you're there, you're basically within the member portal. So once you're there, you would be able to see various tasks. I trust my device, so I seem to have put my password into a place that allows it to access easily. I just want to speak on this. Okay, seems that I might have changed my password recently and forgot. I did, because I changed it at the last training. So I'll update my password. I'm very happy with my security settings. Yes, so I had to update my password at the last training. But basically, once you click your email address, you would go verify your email address. Then you'll get into a page like this. From this page, you have the option to join your local chapter. Here, please join the South Africa chapter. You will see that there are chapters all over the world. So that is the quick flyby, but also the actual way that you will become a member of our organization. So by joining here, you then become so you'll see there's the Bahrain chapter, there's the Armenia chapter, Argentina, Belgium. We are looking for the South Africa chapter. So we'll just search it here, and it will come up at the top to say there is only one of one South African chapters. So that is basically how you would join as a member. From there, you will become, you will stay up to date with our tools, initiatives, projects, And we're really excited to just have as many people joining in this empowered and shared vision as we can. So that is a little bit about us. So please do join us today. And thank you very much. We look forward to inviting you to join the Internet Society South Africa chapter. I think I want to share a few words on Global Encryption Day. It is a very, very special occasion. This is the second year that the Internet South Africa chapter has hosted a Global Encryption Day webinar. And it is our absolute honor to open this event today to you. We had an event that we organized in 2023 that was purely led by the initiatives of our chapter leaders and the strength, the courage, and also budget background searching. So again, this year, we've had the opportunity to join the Global Encryption Coalition in hosting a Global Encryption Day training. Encryption is, of course, the cornerstone of digital security, and today, more than ever, it is crucial to protect data. So encryption is a method of data protection, right? Our communities and our privacies. This is in a world where cyber threats are evolving rapidly. Encryption sends a vital line of defense for individuals, businesses, and communities alike. It's a grand investment for individuals and communities to make into products and resources. At the Internet South Africa, we believe that encryption is just not a technical tool, but that it is a fundamental right to safeguard our freedom of expression and our privacy. As experts, we have gathered and today we are privileged to have a lineup of distinguished speakers, industry leaders, and encryption experts joining us. They'll be sharing their insights and knowledge, and they will guide through the complexities of encryption as we navigate the path toward a safer, more secure digital future. I'd like to take a moment first and foremost as the Internet Society Chair to thank our partners, sponsors, and everyone involved in making this event possible. Your dedication to the mission of protecting an open and secure internet is what drives our collective efforts to build a stronger digital ecosystem. So as we begin today's session, I encourage each and every single one of you to ask questions, connect with one another. Together, we have a more powerful ability to shape the digital security of our internet, to keep the internet safe, to make sure that it is trusted and accessible for all. And working together, it's much easier for us to achieve this mission. Thank you all so much for being here. Let's get started on this journey to enhance our encryption skills, our knowledge, background, understanding. Let us be advocates for encryption wherever we go, in our homes, schools, workplaces, in our communities, in our churches, our synagogues, and ensure that we are the ambassadors that lead for a greater, more encrypted internet. Let's enjoy the skills and knowledge that we're going to achieve, and looking forward to the training and the discussions ahead today with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. So with that said, I just wanted to quickly share the program, so to say. So that's how our program is looking like currently. And instead, there's going to be just one speaker change from BizFarm. We're going to be joined by Dr. Padalka. Mr. Athan wasn't able to join us, so we've got to upgrade, guys. We've got a beautiful lady who's going to be doctor, who's going to be joining us. So it kind of balanced our thing. We've got 2 female speakers, 2 male speakers, and yeah, no, it's perfect now. After that, we're going to have a short break. We might change that short break from 30 minutes to just 15 minutes because we took 15 minutes extra. And then we will then come back from the tea break with Mr. Athan Malambo from MYCOZA. And then we have a Q&A session, and then followed by the closing statement. So we just finished the welcome. Our next speaker is Mr. Roland Giesler from Abellard Software Services. He'll be taking us through securing email with encryption. So yeah, I think the session is gonna start now, and then we should be done with it at 10:45. Thank you very much. Over to you, Roland.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen to get started. I think I've got two screens and I need to figure out which one I want to share. Let's see, is that the right one? There we go. Is that clear? Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Yes, perfect.
Excellent. Okay, so let me introduce myself. I'm not the short-haired brother of Gandalf the Grey, although it may look like it. I'm only halfway through my life, so the best is yet to come. But I wanted to share some background. I wanted to become a teacher, but on my way there, I met a computer, and that allowed me, or the computer insisted that I change track. Not quite, but I really fell in love with computing, and that's how I got into computers rather than teaching. But I still love teaching. So my wife often calls me the world's pedagogue, because I always want to explain lots of little things, and then my kids start rolling their eyes, and all sorts of things happen. So I have to deal with that. Okay, so I'm currently involved with a company called Abellard Software Services and run the private cloud hosting business. But that's not what my chat is about today. I want to take a little detour and sketch some context so that we can understand why we're talking about the topic that I've chosen to speak about. Have any of you seen this before at the bottom of an email? There are various iterations of this text, and to me it's one of the biggest jokes of the business world, because it is the biggest nonsense, but yet people totally believe in it. If you read that, the information contained in this communication is from the sender and is confidential, and it's addressed to the recipient, and if you're not the recipient, then I mean, really. So somebody thought of this to be a disclaimer, and the point is, I'm not here to diss disclaimers, but the issue is that we don't know often who someone is if they say they send you an email, because we don't have any way to verify that this person that is sending you the email is actually who they say they are. We store the information in our mailbox, in our address books, and then when we receive an email from that person, our email reader tells us that this is Roland that is sending you an email. But a lot of business email is not pre-arranged, it just arrives. And so there are two problems with this email. The one is that the text is just clear, it can be read by anybody, and the second one is that we don't know, is this actually who it is claiming to be? So let's look at the next problem that we get with emails. So apart from not knowing who the person is that sent you an email, or not being sure, there's another problem that has cropped up on the web, and that is you send an email to somebody, and then 5 minutes later you browse the web, and suddenly, let's say I spoke about little puppy dogs, and we've got 5 little puppies, and who wants a puppy, and so on and so forth. And suddenly I get puppy food adverts, I've got veterinarians providing their services in my browsing of the internet. How on earth did that happen? Well, there's method in that madness, as they call it. Emails are not by design secure. They can be read by lots of people, and they are read by lots of people, not necessarily by people, but systems are set up to read them. There are service providers that scan the contents of your mail so they can send you focused adverts to help you find things. Of course, there's a problem with that, because only those people that pay to have their services found will be found by your service provider that sends you focused adverts. And those that don't pay the service provider, their adverts don't necessarily get shown to you. So you keep looking for things there and you can't find them, or you find products that you didn't really want, but suddenly they're in your face. So there's all sorts of issues with that, especially if you start looking into niche products. It becomes quite difficult if you just depend on the guidance that your large corporate gives you that runs lots of the internet. So that is a problem. But there are even more serious implications for people reading your email. It could be the IT staff or contractors that work in your building, or cleaners or workmates or your boss. There are all sorts of people that pose a threat to the privacy of your messages. And very often there's nothing nefarious about the mails that you send. And you think, you know what? I'm not worried because I'm not doing anything wrong. But phishing attacks, let me just step back there before I go there. I'm not doing anything wrong. My messages are proper, but it is very often a case of someone going through all your mails and finding out what your direction is that you're going in, stealing business secrets from you, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. And it's a competitive environment in a business, in the business world. And although everything may be totally above board that you're communicating with your workmates or whoever else you're speaking to in emails, having that information out there for someone else to read opens all sorts of possibilities that shouldn't be available to those people that actually read the mail. The authentication issue, knowing who someone actually is explained or is shown very well by the phishing attacks that you receive in your mailboxes quite often. So it's all fine to receive a mail from someone saying, you know, your uncle has recently passed away and there's 7 million due to you. You know it's fraud, unless you actually have a rich uncle who recently passed away. Then you start thinking, wait, is this real? And if you think about all the people that are in the world, I've often looked at these phishing attacks and email frauds that arrive in your mailbox, and I think to myself, who is stupid enough to fall for these things? Surely everybody can see that this is not true, until you realize of 7 billion people in the world, there are probably quite a number of them that have the exact situation that this person has just described. And because they send these mails so widely, someone is going to be hit by it and realize, oh, I must claim this. And then they go and they claim it, and there they go, caught, and they lose the money. Or there's a great example of how someone was scammed, and it's a big news case that was in the newspapers and on the websites for a while. And now recently the Supreme Court has addressed it. The Supreme Court of Appeals has addressed it. An elderly woman in South Africa bought a property in communication with a legal firm, and it was a major firm, and she was informed to pay 5.5 million into a specific account. She didn't notice that the email address that the request came from was almost correct, but the mail had come from the mail had the word Africa in the email address changed to Afrika. And just that little change obviously was from a different email address, and they were actually scammers, and they caught her. And initially the Supreme Court ordered the firm to repay the money, but then the Supreme Court of Appeal ruled against her. So had that email been authenticated, this would not have happened. I've put on the screen there a little example of a potential scam. So it's probably quite visible, but if you look at my Roland at internetsociety.co.za there, it seems quite valid, right? But when you look carefully, you see, oh, wait, that SO of Internet Society looks strange. Something's wrong there. Often an I gets replaced by an L or something like that. And so that's actually not internetsociety.co.za. That's actually internet S0 society.co.za. So there are all sorts of ways in which people can fool you into believing that they are someone else. And authentication, if we had a way to properly authenticate a person, then this will all go away. So, oh my. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Roland.
Yes, we can.
I can't advance to the next screen. I don't know where I got stuck. Ah, there we go. Okay. Confidentiality. How many times have you been surprised to read or hear about an employee that defrauded a company of a sizable amount of money? When I was a young man in the 1990s, I was a victim of such a person who broadly smiled at me every day while siphoning funds on a regular basis. I was young and much too gullible. I just thought, you know, this person is good. There's no problem here. She was doing administration or whatever else. And when I eventually found out how much money she'd stolen, I was shocked. But yeah. So how many people know your email password or your desktop password or your mobile phone unlock code or anything like that, the unlock pattern? Those are people that are around you. And if your messaging is just open and available for anybody to read, you've got a problem. There's a site called techjury.net. They say that 34% of organizations worldwide are affected by insider threads, and 30% of all companies that go bankrupt do so because of employee theft. So if your message that you thought was confidential is not confidential, you're exposing yourself to a lot of issues. So apart from the fact that someone can read, or that someone can pretend to be a sender and is actually not, the contents of the message and the confidentiality of that is actually crucial, but we just don't realize it. It's not in our face every time, and so we don't. It doesn't bother us. So there is a solution. Encryption sounds very technical and complicated, yet I don't know how many of you did this when you were kids, but we used to create little made-up languages with codes in them, and which was actually a way of encrypting a message. And then you'd pass someone a little note, and no one else has any clue unless they knew what the key was. So encryption can be very simple, and it's not difficult to set up anymore. It used to be you needed to be a little bit of a geek, or maybe a little bit more of a geek, to be able to set up encryption. But systems have really been developed to the point where you can literally click a few buttons and you have your encryption enabled. And it can really be unbreakable, which is good news. So it should be widely used, but why isn't it? But before we go to why it isn't, I just want to show you a little sample of encryption. There. Does anybody know what that says? Any guesses? It's a really simple encrypted message. It says, here is an example. All I did is I moved every letter to the next letter in the alphabet. So if I want to read what it says, I have to read the previous letter of the alphabet. So G becomes H, F becomes E, S becomes R, F becomes E. So the first word there is here. And then the rest of the words can be decrypted like that. Obviously, this is a very easy encryption scheme. And if I tell you what the key is, then you can encrypt it quite easily or decrypt it quite easily and encrypt messages to me. But the problem with that is once my key gets known, then everybody can read all my encrypted messages. So obviously that is not, it may seem it's a simple mechanism that if as kids we used that and it was difficult to figure out what was going on, but we also had great fun trying to break the encryption to figure out what was going on. So with computers, there are many more methods to actually do this, and we're going to get into that a bit. But before we do that, why aren't people using, if encryption is so easy and widely available, why aren't people using it? And I think a few of the reasons is there's, first of all, a conflict of interest. There are companies that want to read your communication algorithmically, and they don't want end-to-end encryption. They don't want you to send an encrypted message that only the recipient can read, and the intermediaries, all those people that are running the servers and their algorithms on there, they want to read what those messages say so that they can advertise things to you, or there may be other reasons. If you're a person of interest and you have raised your voice against corruption in the country, maybe the government wants to know who you are and what are you saying, and they can force those people legally, the intermediaries, to show them the information that you've been sending. So if you have that encrypted, they can't do that. They have to come to you and say, we want to know what you said, and then it's up to you to decide how to deal with it. Employers want to see what their staff sent, and they don't want to have encryption. Not all employers want that, but there are employers that want to know, what did our staff send out? And they actually say, if you're using the corporate email, then you can only send corporate mail with that, and that is fair. But if you send private mail from your work computer using your private mail address during lunchtime, then your employer shouldn't want to know what you sent. Of course, if you're breaking the law, they have to deal with that if you're stealing trade secrets or whatever, but that's a different issue altogether. But in general, they shouldn't have the ability to see what messages you have sent and to whom you sent it. And then I think maybe one of the biggest problems is that individuals are just not acutely aware of the risks of open email. They just don't bother. I think it's a little example that I thought of. People don't consider things that they can't see as a problem. So we can't see that someone is actually reading our email, or that there's an algorithm going through the emails and checking what they need to advertise to us. So it's similar to the drug companies that have to constantly remind people of the gazillion viruses and variants that they conjure up and how dangerous these little monsters are. If they don't do that, otherwise they will not be selling enough magic potion to keep the lights on. So they're constantly telling you about all these dangers, and if they stop, we forget about them. So in a positive way and in a negative way, things we don't see, we don't bother about, unless someone constantly reminds us and says, you've got to do this, or you shouldn't do this. So as long as we don't notice someone reading through our emails, we're all fine, safe, warm and fuzzy. Everything's great. But the reality is quite different. So someone came up with a very clever plan, and they said, let's create an encryption mechanism where there is no master key that someone can use to read all the mails that have been encrypted, or not just emails, documents, anything else. Let's create a mechanism that doesn't have a master key, but where each sender has his own key and can read the messages sent to him or can encrypt messages sent from him or her. So that is called asymmetric encryption. We're going to do a practical little demonstration of how this actually works now, but that is the picture here of how asymmetric encryption actually works. And basically, you have a public key and a private key. And when you want to send a message to somebody, you use that person's public key to encrypt the message and send it to the person. And when that person receives it, they use their private key to match the public key, and then they can decrypt it, and then they can read the message, and vice versa. If they send a message back, it's the same thing in reverse. So how does that actually work? So let me do a little demonstration of this. So I have a clean sheet of paper here. Let me just turn my background. Okay, you can see the sheet of paper, right? There we go. There. I've got a clean sheet of paper. If my background video doesn't sync it. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to take some cookies and just draw a little pattern on it. I'll show you what it looks like. All right, I've drawn a little pattern on my, okay, let me just turn my background off. Give me a second. Can I do that easily? There we go. There you can see. There's my little encryption tool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tear this in half. Okay, now I've got two parts. Okay, I'm going to call this my private key. I'm going to just put a big private. Okay, there's my private key. Okay, it's the wrong way around now, but at least there it is. And this I'm going to call my pub key. There's the other key. There's my pub key. So if I want someone to send me a message that I want to be able to authenticate and validate that it actually comes from that person, I'm going to pass them the paper. I'm going to say, there's the paper. Okay, now if that person sends me a message and it comes to me over the internet and I receive this, I don't know who sent it, but at least I have something that I can join to this. So if I take this and I combine the paper, I can see, it fits. Okay, so now I know that this is actually the paper that I gave them, because anybody else that also did this wouldn't have the same paper. It would be different somehow. The pattern would be different. The tear would be different. So this is a public key and this is the private key. And this is my key. Nobody gets this. This is my secret. I keep that hidden away. And whenever someone wants to address me, this public key, I publish on the internet. There are public key servers. And I just take that, I put it on a public key server by clicking a button to say, put it there. And then when someone wants to send me an authenticated encrypted message, they go find my public key. They say, here's Roland, here's his email address. They take this key, or the software that they use takes this key, encrypts the message and sends it to me. I receive the message. I say, let's see if it actually fits. Take my, go upside down. Okay, well, I've got it upside down. Doesn't matter. Let me turn it around this way. I match the two and I say, aha, it matches. And now I can read the message, and I know that whoever sent it to me is actually the person who they claim to be, because to be able, for them to be able to get the key, they also need a key. So they needed to have done the same thing that I did. So if I go back to that picture that I had there, there we go. If we look at that again, to be able to send a message to me, the person, this guy here, needs my public key to encrypt the message, send it to me. There, that text, and I'll show you just now what that text actually looks like once it's encrypted. Needs my public key. I take my private key, combine it with the public key, and then I can decrypt it and I can read what the message actually said. So let me just close this guy here. Let's do a practical demonstration with actual computer software. Okay, sorry, before we do that, I just want to discover or discuss the enablers of this software, of this process. There's a project called OpenPGP, which is almost as old as the internet. And PGP stands for Pretty Good Privacy. So OpenPGP is a project that has created software for virtually all the mail systems that are available. And because it's an open source project, lots of people contribute to it. And when someone creates a new mail system and it doesn't support OpenPGP, someone will come along and say, let's add this in, and they build it in, and then it becomes available. So you can go to openpgp.org and you can go read about all the different tools that are available for all the different platforms: Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, Linux, web browsers, all sorts of things. I'm going to use Thunderbird because I use that for my email, and it's a mail reader that was created by a company called Mozilla, which also create Firefox. So they're an independent creator of this project, rather than Google and Microsoft and Apple and these guys that have their own product, their own browsers and mail readers. So I use this, and you can read about that also at openpgp.org/software. So there are all sorts of options for you for Windows, Linux, Mac, iOS, and so on. So before anybody can do this, there are two things that are required. You need to be able to cooperate with the people that you send it to. If you want to send someone an encrypted message, they also need to have a public and private key, and they need to give you their public key part. And that's what these key servers do. And just as an aside, this process does not just get used for email. It gets used for software signing. If you download software from the internet, it tells you that you can check the validity of the software. There are all sorts of applications, disk encryption, all sorts of things make use of this type of technology, so that you are able to ensure that nobody reads the information except for those people that you actually intended to, like the video said at the beginning that we were watching. And obviously the other big part is there's got to be a will to do this. If you don't want to do this, you'll never do it. So let's oh, wait, just 1 second. Are we? Yeah, there we are. Okay. Let's do an actual practical demonstration. Let me see if I can switch here. Trying to find my, okay. Me Can you see my Thunderbird screen?
Roland, you might have to maybe stop sharing and reshare.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Yeah, now we can see.
Okay, all right. So I have Thunderbird set up with a lot of different email accounts that I use in different businesses and in different capacities. And here in the middle is my personal email address, roland@giesler.za.net. And Thunderbird has built in a feature where you can simply click. So I just want to show you, if I click here, then there's my inbox and my archive and banking and ISOC and all sorts of technical things. Whatever I wanted to put in there, that's my mail folder. So if I go on the main screen here and I click on end-to-end encryption, then the process is really simple. I've already added a key here. There's my key. And I'm not going to add another key for this mail account because that would be confusing. Which one is the correct one? So I'm going to use my GTA hardware account, which hasn't, just hang on, let me just close this here. I'm on the wrong page here. I'm going to use this GTA hardware there. I don't have a key set up for that. And I specifically left that out so that I can demonstrate it in our session here. So I go to end-to-end encryption, and it basically gives you a little write up here about how this works. And then it says, okay, you can add a key. So I'm going to add a key now. It says, okay, what do you want to do? I want to create a key, or if you have a key already, you can just import it. So obviously you don't want multiple keys for the same email address. So I want to create this one because I don't have one yet, but if you had one, you would just import it. So I'm going to say continue. And I'm going to say, you know what, it's going to expire in a year because I want to renew it. And I'm going to use there are two types of encryptions that you can use. You can use RSA or you can use ECC. I prefer ECC because it creates a much smaller key. But anyway, if you're interested in that, you can go read up about it and figure out which one you enjoy more. And I'm going to say, just at the top there, you can see the identity that I'm creating this for. This is roland@gtihardware.co.za. I say, okay, let's go. And it says, this is going to take a short while to complete. And I'm going to say confirm, and boom, it's done. So now I have a key. Now, before anybody can use that key, I have to send that key somewhere so people can find it. So here is a public key server that I can send it to discover it. I'm going to say publish. And it says, okay, we've sent it to this keys.openpgp.org. And that's it. Now I've got a key. I push the public part. Remember that one part of the page that I tore off? I send that out into the open internet. That's a public part of the key. Now anybody that wants to send me an encrypted email can do so as long as they also have a key. Okay, so I'm going to close this now. I'm actually going to go here. I just created this key for Roland@GTA hardware. And I'm going to say I want to send a new message. To Roland@GTA hardware. Oh, maybe I mustn't do that because maybe I should. Let me just try that. I've got some gray listing that I use, which takes a while before you actually receive the mail to prevent spam. So let's do a test demo 1, 2, 3, and we put a very secret message in there that nobody should ever know. So let's see. Before I send it, at the bottom it says open PGP end-to-end encryption is possible. Why does it say that? Because Thunderbird knows the ecosystem that I'm working in. It's already seen that there's a public key published for Roland@gtihardware.co.za. So what it does now, it says, okay, do you want to encrypt this? And I say, yep, encrypt it. At the top, there's a encrypt button that you can click there as well. It's basically the same thing. Or here you can say what you want to do. Sometimes you can just digitally sign it and you don't have to encrypt it. or you can encrypt everything. Can you see here? It gives you the option to encrypt the message. It encrypts the subject, this subject as well, and it signs it digitally. I just want to linger a second on that. To encrypt the subject is also important, because once you see what a subject, people say in their subject a lot about what the message is supposed to contain. And if you don't want that information out in the open either, you can encrypt the subject. So I'm going to show you what happens when you send this and you try and read this without encryption. But let's just send this as an encrypted message. So there I'm sending it. And it's done. So now I'm going to go to GTO hardware, and I'm going to go to my inbox, and I'm going to see, here's, okay, there's a message. And the minute I clicked on it, did you see that? It used to have two little dashes. You couldn't see the topic. But as soon as I clicked on it, it decrypted it. And it said, blah, here's the important message. So this is, now I can, if I reply to this message, this is my encrypted message, and I can say reply to sender only. Okay. And again, the same thing here. If I reply, now the encrypt is already on. But I can turn it off and not go encrypted anymore. Or I can carry on. And I'm answering. And I send it off. And when I receive it on the other end, there's it again. See, it's just dots. I can't see what it is because it's encrypted. But the minute I click it, it says, there, this is read test demo 123. And there's the message back. So this was an encrypted email from one of my accounts to the other one. Now I want to show you what happens if I send this. I've linked my Gmail, an account that I used before, Roland at the Green Tree. I can actually send a message to Roland at the Green Tree and show you what it looks like in Gmail. Roland at the greentree.za.net, and very secret message. Okay, and I'm going to go encrypt this. And I'm going to go send. All right, now, because I have a key set up for Roland at the Green Tree, that message is encrypted. And I can now go to, now I have to hunt for my Gmail account. Let's see, which I have open on a different machine. And there is my Gmail account. And if I go there and I refresh it, there we go. There's Roland Giesler sending me a message, and it's a bunch of dots. And guess what? The message is in there. The only thing that I've got is a thing called encrypted ASC. And if I try to read what this message says, surprise, it says, begin PGP message. And good luck to anyone that thinks they can figure out what I wrote. So if you compare this to my little example of shifting the letters of the alphabet, one letter, and encrypting the message, and then sending it like that, and then someone reverses it again to read what I said. If you can figure out what this says, you are better than the world's best computers, because this is encrypted in a way that you will never know what this says unless you pour massive amount of computing power at this for many years probably, and you might still not get it. Of course, if I have the key, so I have the public part that encrypted this, and now I need the private part, and I combine them, then I can read what it says. So if you're using Gmail and you want to encrypt, there is a plugin which I have disabled at the moment. Let me just see if I can get rid of this. overlay here. Okay, there's a plugin extension that I've disabled now called FlowCrypt. So if I enable that, that allows me to manage keys in Gmail. I don't particularly like it because it doesn't allow you to format the messages. But if I go back to Gmail now and I refresh the screen, you'll see I will have a new little feature. So there we go. Set up FlowCrypt now for encrypted mail, and I can say yes, and then it will set up. So I'm not going to go through that. If you want to use Gmail or Outlook or whatever else, the instructions on openpgp.net are quite .org are quite clear. So I'm not going to do that now. I'm actually just going to minimize this and go back to where we were. And so that is the demo of how to set up an encrypted email session, and that's as simple as it is. You just literally create the key. The public part gets published, and then you can start sending emails to people. Oh, let me just show you then. If I try to send an email to someone whose mail is not encrypted. So I've got another very secret email address, rolandgiesler@gmail.com. And I'm saying, keep this a secret. Okay, and I say, I want to encrypt this. End-to-end encryption requires resolving key issues for rolandgiesler@gmail.com. Okay, I'm thinking maybe Roland has an encryption key. Let's see if we can find it. Resolve. Discover public keys online. Now it goes to the public key servers and it says, where's rolandgiesler@gmail.com's public key? And it says, sorry, there isn't a public key for Roland on the public servers. So it may be possible that someone actually exchanges keys with you manually. So they can send you a message and say, hey, Roland, here's my public key. And then I can store it in a file and I can say, okay, let's import that public key from a file. And I can go find it and I see, okay, where is the file? And if I've got it, I can import it and then I can encrypt the message. So there are various methods of sharing keys, but the public key servers are very popular because it makes it really easy. And then you can find someone's public key and can send them an encrypted message. So I'm going to close this. So I can't send this message encrypted, even if I wanted to. So I say, do not encrypt, and then I can send the message. Okay, so with this, you can see one of the problems with getting people to encrypt their mail. I have a customer that if I go to him and say, hey, let's do all the mail encrypted, he's going to say, you know what? Go fly a kite. I don't have time for your nonsense. I know him well enough by now over all the years. He just doesn't believe that it's detrimental that people read his mail or that algorithms read his mail. He's just one of those people. So obviously there are some people that are going to resist this, but the more people that do this, the more popular it becomes and the easier it becomes for everybody to join in. And once everybody uses encrypted mail, a lot of the spam and phishing issues and all the other things that we have will go away. Let me just highlight that again. If a spammer or a phishing attacker generates a key for himself, that's possible. So if he generates a key and there he's got his public key that he publishes, and now he sends me an encrypted email, that's all fine. The downside of that is that now he's ID'd himself with his email address. So it's not just a random person generating some fake email address somewhere, sending off a mail, and immediately traceability and ways, which is not part of this discussion, there are ways in which that person can now be found, to put it that way. So spammers and phishing attempts and scammers are very unlikely to use this mechanism because it just exposes them to too much traceability and too much risk. So yeah, that's my contribution to today. So are there any questions? Let me just close this here and switch back to
Hey, thank you very much, Roland, for that. Yes, we're opening up for questions. Are there any questions online? Don't see any hands. Guys in the room, do you have a question for Roland?
Good morning, Roland. I just want to find out with this mechanism that you just showed us. It's very interesting and powerful. But however, I would also like to know, since we're talking Encryption Day, and yes, it's part and parcel of, I believe, governance in terms of, privacy, security, and etc. So is there a way, or is it already been implanted, that we can also protect ourselves from being not just only technically unscammed, or another word maybe misused or abused, but also in terms of legality and policy-wise? Is there something that has already been implemented that we can be authentically South African in terms of what you have advertised for us for business,
yes,
personal use, and organizational use?
Okay, so what I just demonstrated is if you just use OpenPGP, if I say I'm Roland and I publish my keys, then that's it. If I had said I was Peter, I would be published as Peter. But then I'm stuck with Peter as a name in that context. So I can't chop and change then. But if you wanted to actually be more authenticated, then you could actually buy yourself a key that someone first authenticates, in a similar way that you can buy a certificate for a website that is authenticated by VeriSign, or by, there's a whole bunch of other companies. I think VeriSign was taken over by someone, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not quite on top of it. But there are companies that allow you to get a verified digital signature or digital ID. And then when someone receives mail from you, they know that you've been validated by a third party that checked your credentials and checked that you are actually who you say you are. And that can go, depending on how serious you are about it, that can be quite extensive. They can literally go into your background, and they can check your all sorts of identification details and other validation methods that they use, which is pretty much up to the company that uses it. Of course, the other side of having a simple mechanism like this is, if I were to tell you, you saw me on video today and we had a discussion, and I've shared my public key with you, when you now communicate with me, you know who you're communicating with. If you don't trust the system, let's say the PGP key server, we can have a private discussion. You can WhatsApp me, or you can Telegram me, or whatever, and then I can send you the key privately and say, here's my key. And then you store that on your computer, and then you have my public key from a trusted source because we had a discussion about it. So there are various mechanisms in which we can do what you're asking for. There's just another thing that I also want to touch on, and that is, which is not quite encryption related, but if you send encrypted messages and there's some government department that would like to know what you have been talking about, they can ask your email service provider to send you, to tell them, send them copies of all your communications. If your communication is encrypted, then those people cannot read it that want to read it, just like the commercial providers can't read it. You can take it a step further. If you host your own mail server, if you just rent space from somebody and you actually implement your own software, you don't run your mail on a service provider's mail platform. So by that I mean, if you go to Outlook.com, Microsoft is actually running Outlook.com on your behalf, and you're just using a mailbox on there. But you can set up your own mail server. And if you look at those of you that saw that, I'm running a service called Mail in a Box, which is my own mail server. So if someone were to run something like Mail in a Box for themselves, and the government comes to AfriHost or whoever your service provider is and says, can we please read Roland's mail? AfriHost says, we're not hosting mail for him. He runs his own mail. So the only way that the government could get copies of your mail would be to actually approach you directly and say, Roland, we want mail. We want your mail. And then you can say, hey, why do you want our mail? Because we've got a court order. Okay, well, how did you get the court order? You know, and so you can challenge the inquisitiveness of the government. If your mail is run through a service provider that runs the mail for you, they're obliged not to tell you that the government actually asked for your email. So there are ways in which you can protect yourself, especially if you're an activist or you're a person that opposes a government, and that's, I'm not talking about South Africa alone, worldwide, wherever people are working. There are ways in which you can protect yourself against unwarranted and unnecessary snooping without your knowledge. But that is a little bit of a different topic. So as far as the ID and actually validating your public and private, your private keys, your identity, that is definitely possible, but I'd say it's a slightly different topic than actual encryption. So the encryption is the mechanism. The validation of a person's identity is an external process, but it's definitely there and it is available. Does that answer your question?
All right, thank you very much, Roland. Anybody else who has questions for Roland, may I ask that maybe you can put them in the chat, and then so that we can move on to our next speaker. Roland, thank you very much. But before I let you go, do you mind just sharing your details of how people can reach you or your company?
I think the best is yes, would be to just send me an email at roland@giesler.za.net.
So next up we have Dr. Padalka. I hope I pronounced your surname correctly. She's a co-founder of BizFarm, which is specializing in business incubation in Durban, Kwa-Zulu-Natal.
Good morning, everybody, and felicitations for this Global Encryption Day. And thank you for coordinating this event, for organizing the event, and for inviting BizFarm to speak on this event. Thank you to Roland for having given a very informative talk on how we can protect ourselves on the internet. And of course, the chair lady who spoke before Roland, I think she has opened the floor a lot wider on the issue of encryption. I mean, she's gone beyond encryption to talking about internet, society as a whole. I do have a little presentation on what BizFarm does in terms of incubation. But before I get to that, I think I would like to just spell out the basic here that we are all have to be aligned to, which is that the moment we sign up to getting ourselves a digital entity, a digital identity, we hand over our privacy right to an unknown entity, which is the internet. Therefore, the internet is an all-powerful entity which is actually invisible because we don't know who that entity is. It's not a person, it's not a corporation, it's not a government, it's not a group of countries either. And it's not even the entire world body which we repose our strength into, let us say, be it world multilateral agencies or something like that. So we don't know who that real entity is, and we also do not know where that power sits. Before I proceed, I hope the volume is okay now for everybody, and I assume that I'm audible because I don't see any messages in the chat. So coming back to what where encryption stands and what is the role of encryption in our day-to-day lives. So the moment we have a digital identity, we have surrendered our privacy to an unknown entity, which we do not know who it is, and we do not know where it sits. So it's essentially a system that governs all of us. So that means that it's a utility like electricity or water, because it also is something that affects all of us. And you may have bodies to regulate it, to supply your utilities, but it cannot be one single person or one single government or one single corporation, because it affects all of us. So it's a public good. Internet, therefore, and its use becomes a public good. Now we've surrendered ourselves to this authority, which we don't know what it is. It's essentially invisible. But in the way the internet is structured today, that entity is a machine, and it is all powerful. No individual can influence that machine single-handedly, and it has kind of a lot of power over us. So the essential question then becomes, how do we distribute that power to all of us so that that power is democratized? That power is for our safety. That power is operated for our good and not to harm us, especially not to harm our children. So the big question then on this Global Encryption Day is our internet, which has now become a society, which is an economy, and which is a political force. So not only, and of course, it has psychological ramifications. So all your social sciences put together are actually operating through what is now known as the internet, because it is society. What we do, what we think is influenced by our internet. How we perceive others is influenced by the internet sites that we log on to. Now, it is also an economic force, because everything that you pay for, you buy, or that you transact is done through the internet. And it's a political force because, as I said, it has sucked up power into an unknown entity, and we do not know where that power sits. So, and therefore, when we are using social media or any other internet, it also has a psychological bearing on all of us, because we are always, as Roland pointed out, we are always afraid of surrendering our privacy. We are afraid of what's going to scam us. We are afraid of giving us out our details on the internet. Yet there is no option to it, because the internet is an app, is the economy. The world today is the internet. So the only way we can protect ourselves is by not going digital. And yes, there are a few people who do manage it that way, who take a decision. I don't want to be on the internet. I don't want to be digital, because it means surrendering my privacy to an unknown entity. But the majority of us cannot do without that, because our lives depend on the internet. It's more so after COVID. So therefore, what's the best possible way out of this is to democratize that power for the social good, for the public good. And now the big question is, how do we do it? How do we democratize that power? How do we make internet work for us, rather than we subjecting ourselves as individuals who can be manipulated by the internet? And I'm sure everybody has had an experience Either they've been hacked, or they've got unknown emails like from scamsters, or they get unwanted emails, or they've got corrupted data, or they've got stolen data, or they've got hacked computers, or they've just got loss of internet on a very crucial day where they have to have a meeting. There's suddenly no internet. It doesn't happen by fluke. It happens by sometimes by a design which is not traceable to where it came from. So the big question now is how we democratize the internet, how we have a say in how internet affects all of us, especially at our very local level. And therefore, the role that the internet society plays going forward is going to be very crucial for our own good. And therefore, while it may be very difficult to understand it because it's an unknown entity which we never see, the big question is, yet, how do we make sense of it? So once again, a big thank you to all of you for taking this initiative on this important topic on this important day. And now I would like to share my presentation with you to explain what incubation is and how incubation can play a role in enhancing the democratization process of the internet such that it becomes a force for global good. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, I am screen sharing now. I hope can you all see the screen? I'm assuming yes, you can see the screen. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so incubation in South Africa, as we said, we are a private incubator in Durban, and we have at any given time about 15 to 20 incubatees with us who we are mentoring on a range of support services. We work with all sectors of the economy. We work with government, NGOs, tertiary institutions, and we have a track record of having assisted over 500 SMMEs in the past 10 years in various sectors. But what excites me today is the role that incubation can play in democratizing the internet, in increasing our privacy, and in encryption, to be more precise. So it's a new frontier. It's a 4IR frontier, as we say, and therefore we need to understand the term 4IR as well as we understand incubation. 4IR is what is known as the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It is a commonly used term now, and it stands for an increasingly digitized economy, and more specifically, 4IR stands for increased digitization of the industrial economy. And of course, encryption plays a very important role in the industrial economy because it's about privacy, it's about coding your messages, it's about preventing espionage of commercial information, it's about protecting your intellectual property, and so on. And of course, also at this point, I'd like to add that encryption or coding or the necessity of encryption and coding is not something that has arisen in the internet age. It has existed for more than over 100 years, where messages were coded, messages were passed on from one kingdom to another in another kingdom in code, so that the spies wouldn't get access to secret information. Espionage has existed since more than over 100 years. So espionage, data privacy, message privacy is not something that is new. It's just the form that has got digitized now, and not only has the form got digitized, but the form has now become all pervasive. Earlier, it only affected the rulers of kingdoms and key governments, but now it affects each and every one of us who is on the digital economy. So encryption is not something new, but the method and the form is something to be grappled with, and it is new in that form. So let me come to incubation in particular for those who may not be more clued up on the role that incubation plays in South Africa. So where we have a scenario of high poverty, inequality, unemployment, and we have a high startup failure rate, in the sense a lot of SMMEs are not able to go beyond the first 2-3 years because of a host of issues, a host of challenges despite a good policy environment from the government, the question then is, how do we make sure that our enterprises succeed in an increasingly entrepreneurial world? There's, of course, our challenges of supply chain transformations, where we have supply chain rigidities, productivity challenges, and other economic challenges. So incubation has come to play since, let me say, since the global recession that happened in 2008. Since then, the role of incubation has only increased, and incubation has become a kind of an accepted sphere of society, wherein it has become an entrenched pillar in society, where every sector, every corporate, every organization, every tertiary institution does not does not proceed without incorporating the role of incubation into its planning stage documents and so on. Now, yes.
Dr. Padalka, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do you mind going into presentation mode so that the people at the back can also see, if you don't
mind? Do I
mind
going into the presentation?
Yes, because we're seeing, well, they are battling to just see the words. So I think if you click on current slide, it will be in presentation mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
So business incubator. Okay, let me just.
Thank you. That's perfect.
So now let me explain the difference between the process of incubation and a business incubator. The incubator is a physical or a virtual facility. It is the infrastructure, and it is designed to accelerate the successful development of entrepreneurial companies through business support resources and services. And it has an incubator management systems in place, and it is offered, the services are offered at the incubator, the support services to entrepreneurial companies, essentially micro enterprises and youth, is offered through the support is offered at the incubator, also through a host of contacts and some other platforms. And therefore, very often it has been used as just a place that offers office space. That is a very narrow definition of incubation. Yes, access to affordable office space is an integral part of incubation, because very often it is the high rental costs for startup enterprises that prevents them from going off into their growth phase. Not just startups, even established firms are unable to get competitive because of high rent. So that is, of course, the first barrier to be addressed in incubation, but it is not the only barrier. So there are different types of incubators. So apart from being a physical facility, it is also a virtual. So a blended mode of incubation is to be offered. It can be technology-based or non-technology-based. Technology-based incubators are something that the kind of a facility which only focuses on new digital technologies to enhance the products and services that can be provided without those digital services. For example, we can have a range of encryption entrepreneurs, so that they can then become a incubatee at a technology incubation facility. They can be sector specific, they can be a social business or a not for-profit business, and of course the role of virtual incubation. They can be government or private as well. So the essential thing is to distinguish between the process of incubation and the facility of incubation. So at BizFarm, we have the facility, and we are day to day refining and defining and improvising the processes that we have been offering since 2010. What are these services or processes that we are offering? Flexible office space, business planning and operationalization, product development and commercialization, marketing and promotions, networking, assistance in obtaining finance, IP protection, mentoring and coaching, technical training, business development training, and access to markets. So in a nutshell, these are more specific services. In a nutshell, to encapsulate it, in a nutshell, let's say it's the 4 legs of a table: access to skills, access to finance, access to workspace, access to machinery, and then coaching and mentorship as well. When everything is offered under one roof, through a proper system, through a more targeted system, which is more tailored system, we say that we can reduce the failure rate of micro enterprises. And why do we need to reduce the failure rate? There are multiple reasons why we need to reduce the failure rate of enterprises, startup enterprises, youth enterprises. For one reason, of course, because startup enterprise is seen as a source of livelihood today's times. With post-COVID environment where the jobs market has become extremely fragmented, extremely disintegrated, with reduced structures, with reduced formality, where the process of hiring has become more open and disintegrated. More and more people look at entrepreneurship as a support to their livelihoods. You may have a job, but a job is a pathway to getting something of your own. It's not, again, that this never existed before. It has only become more accentuated, more pronounced, more acceptable after COVID, more destructured after COVID. And therefore, this process is only going to expand. Many people after COVID would say, can we go back to the previous COVID era? It's highly unlikely, because if you see post-COVID, 4 years after COVID or 3 years after COVID, the process has only expanded. The process of fragmentation, of disintegration, of destructuring has only expanded. And the pillar of incubation has only increased in its structure and form. Therefore, the role of incubation has to enterprises needs to get is more systemized. And at BizFarm, we have fine-tuned the system to include the following stages: pre-incubation, application process, the incubation, the graduation, and the post-graduation. In fact, most incubators today follow this process. So from you have an idea, you come up with a proposition, you come up with an application to an incubator as a startup for that idea, you incubate, you go through your initial challenges, you acquire your necessary certificates of expertise in your business, you grow, and then you graduate. We've had incubatees at BizFarm who've been there for about more than 5 years with us, and then I have moved on to own premises, and it's out of BizFarm. But the reason for moving out of their own, it's like a bird who's developed their wings and wants to fly on their own. Now, for example, when Roland talked of encryption, it's an excellent opportunity to identify people who can provide encryption services to companies. Because as a company, if I were a company, I wouldn't know how to encrypt my data. I wouldn't know how to ensure that there's data privacy and there's no data espionage. And if a specialized service is, most companies hire IT skills or IT services or IT support, and encryption can become a part of that support that can be provided to companies. And for that, you need young entrepreneurs who can understand encryption, set up their businesses of providing encryption services, or even just increasing awareness to begin with for companies it needs to become a incentivized business model. Only then can we make encryption a necessity in businesses. Only then can we reach the necessity of democratizing the internet society and harnessing the power of the internet for social good. And what's a typical manufacturing incubator looking like? You have a range of SMMEs who share a lot of machineries, and they share a common office block. It's very difficult for an SMME to invest in having its own telephone lines, in having its own services of hygiene, in having its own services for training and boardrooms facilities. So shared services, therefore, are the route to go. Now, if left to themselves with no coaching and mentoring, again, these services will not be able to pass the crucial growth phase of 3 years to 5 years. That's when they need the hand-holding. And we would like to, of course, I understand that you're streaming from Johannesburg, probably from Soweto currently, and it would be very interesting if we could invite you to visit BizFarm and see the way it operates, and probably look at more targeted encryption services that can be provided to companies through incubatees. So how did and on this note, I would like to say that for the 10 years that I've operated in this space of incubation, I've felt that the policy environment for incubation in South Africa is extremely well developed, in the sense it's targeted, it's focused, and it's conscious. Very often, it's not a very conscious policy environment which allows the SMMEs to grow unhindered. And it is to the credit of the policy environment, to the DTI and the internet environment in South Africa, which has given a thrust to SMMEs through incubation in every sector of the economy. Now, as I said, our identity is digital. So if we are supporting SMMEs in all sectors, but if we are not going to be supporting SMMEs in the internet sector, now I'm being specific, it's not the digital sector, it's the internet sector, then we are not crossing the bridge to our own empowerment, because remember, we are all part of a broader society, which is the internet society. So we need to now focus on SMMEs in the internet sector to harness the power of the internet. It began, as it was noted, through the Godisa Trust in 1999 to create technology intensive SMMEs with contributions from the European Union. The Department of Science and Technology and the DTI also contributed to support South African incubation programs, and which finally led to the setup of the SEDA, which is the Small Enterprise Development Agency, which has carried out the process of incubation over the past few years. 105 incubators as of 2014, and this has only grown. 76% of incubators in South Africa are partly or fully funded by government. So that brings me to the point again that the role of South African government in the process of incubation has been exemplary. What are the benefits? I think we've discussed the benefits, but I think this slide is extremely important because it shows how incubation helps the entire society. It helps SMMEs, it helps government, it helps universities, it helps corporates, and it helps the local community. Of course, there will be a process where we will share this presentation with you, so you can look up the individual benefits, but and therefore to save on time, I will just spell out these benefits very briefly. For SMMEs, it enhances their success rate. For governments, it also promotes jobs, because it's less of a burden on the South African government to find a job for every citizen, every youth, if the South African youth are so entrepreneurial that after graduation, they can set up businesses. And this process has taken hold. I have seen many young graduates, when they are walking out of their tertiary institutions with their graduation certificates in hand, they already have a business idea. They already have a business plan. They already know what they want to do as part of their business. And I think that spells a lot, takes away a lot of burden from the South African government to ensure that there's a job for everyone. I'm not belittling the need to provide jobs. What I'm saying is that since entrepreneurial SMMEs are the route to increased job creation, what incubation does is it channels youth energy productively in the absence of gainful employment. However, we still need to ensure that there's gainful employment available, because it then mitigates the risk of entrepreneurship failures. It increases the ability to provide livelihoods to families and so on. But what it does is it gives a channel, it gives an alternative channel to government, which the government has already been pursuing. It allows universities to promote research commercialization. And that's what I was speaking about. When graduates are coming out of universities, they are already having business ideas, business plans with them about what they want to, how they want to support themselves in the future. So these research ideas are developed in labs, in research labs at universities. And now the commercial process is then handed over to an innovation lab or an incubator. And therefore, research commercialization, which was very hindered in the past, gets a fillip. In the sense, commercialization of research becomes a much faster process than what it used to be before incubation existed. The corporates develop a channel of the ability to get supply chains. For example, if you want to do procurement, you can outsource a range of these products and services as a corporate to emerging enterprises, which are incubated properly. Rather than the corporate dealing with emerging enterprises which lack the sophisticated training or skills that are required to engage in a corporate environment, if these emerging enterprises come with a certificate that tells the corporate that they know the basics of how to engage in business with a corporate entity, it again mitigates the burden of corporates to deal with a lot of emerging enterprises that are operating loosely in a fragmented way with different mindsets and so on. What an incubator does is it provides a kind of a uniform mindset to emerging enterprises. And then, of course, it enhances the self-esteem of communities, because you no longer have to worry about the youth and empowerment, as youth are entrepreneurial to fend for themselves. So incubators play a pivotal role in the local economy. Let's focus on the local economy, because once the local economy has a kind of an entrenched position once incubators have an entrenched position in the local economy, they can then expand to other spheres of the economy. Then we look at evolution of the SA incubation policy. As I said, it began in 1999 with the creation of high-tech SMMEs with funding from various quarters. Then there was the transformation wave in South Africa was supported by the incubation wave from 2005 to 2012. And now you have a supplier development wave. The supplier development wave is the fragmentation that I've been talking about, that everything that can be fragmented is getting fragmented, and it is getting more broad-based. It is going into the hands of emerging entrepreneurs. And that's a democratization process as well, from the point of view of the internet power that exists in an unknown entity. We then have the South African Business Establishment Incubation Establishment Handbook, which you can look at, exists with the DTI. So at BizFarm, in conclusion, I'll take another 2 minutes. We have different products or programs for our incubators. In the startup phase, you have the Start Your Business. you have the Grow Your Business and the Develop Your Business. 3 programs at 3 different stages of an emerging enterprise, likely to be completed between 3 to 5 years by an SMME, in different sectors. And we welcome this SMME incubation in the space of the Internet Society as well, because we are an Internet Society, as we just mentioned. In addition to these 3 programs, Start Your Business, Grow Your Business, and Develop Your Business, what we also offer is an employability program and a digital marketing program for the youth. And we also have a cohort of interns who we polish over a year, so that when they finish their internship with BizFarm for over a year, they come out not just as job seekers, but also as emerging entrepreneurs. They may not have a developed business immediately, but they know they're thinking about it. They know they've got to do something about it, because the environment at BizFarm makes them aware of the need for entrepreneurship, of the need for being entrepreneurial with their lives, of the need to take their destiny in their own hands, and of the need to ensure that they are able to sustain themselves and their families with a range of living options, not just a job which they will have after a year of internship. So the employability program, the digital marketing program, and the internship program enhances the entrepreneurial mindset. It exposes them to the digital economy, and it exposes them to the various aspects of the future that is evolving in South Africa and in the global economy. So what are the key determinants on this Global Encryption Day that will take the role of encryption forward? I just did a quick search because it's a new field, it's an emerging field, new field from the point of view of all of us. And as I said, encryption has existed, but for people, for common people, encryption is something out there. It's also always existed in the defense forces, not something where all of us get impacted by it on a day-to-day basis. And companies as well are getting more increasingly impacted by the lack of encryption. So we need to do a sector skill study in encryption. We need to assess the need for cybersecurity. We need to assess the demand for cybersecurity skills, and we need to enhance the training capacity for encryption. I mean, these are no-brainer, non-negotiable. If we want to make an impact in encryption or internet security, we've got to do this. And the Internet Society of South Africa will have to play a pivotal role in the sector skills study, which addresses these points, the need for cybersecurity. We need to assess the need for cybersecurity. What is the nature of scamming that's happening? Why is it happening? What can we do about it? So all those issues. And probably there are studies already done. If these studies are done, we need to highlight them. Maybe your next webinar can highlight these findings and take it to a wider audience. We need to see what kind of cybersecurity skills are required. And then we also need to relate it to the global performance of cybersecurity, because we are not isolated. Because today you send out an email, you don't send out an email only to South Africa. That email is sent out even to other countries by South Africans. So we are linking into a global economy. So we need to understand cybersecurity from a global perspective. We need to understand what kind of performance has been enlisted in cybersecurity from other countries, and then enhance collaborative arrangements in this. So that's what how BizFarm looked at the issue of cybersecurity, encryption in particular, on this Global Day of Encryption. And therefore, we thank you for this opportunity once again, and we welcome all of you to BizFarm. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for that brilliant presentation. And, just before we open up for questions and answers, I'd just like to say, when it comes down to incubation, I think it's something as internet society we need to look into also, because as much as we can empower people with technical skills, empower them with access to submitting for grants, we tend to overlook the business aspect of it. And when you are an internet service provider, or you are running an internet exchange point, or you are running a data center, or you are an email or a cybersecurity practitioner, the business side is also very important, because that's the only way you'll scale to be able to help more people across the country. So for me, I'd like to appreciate this presentation, and I think it's a well-timed presentation when we look into 2025, 2026. And I know that there's some burning questions on the floor, so I'll hand over to that. So I'll hand over to the floor. If there's anyone who has a hand up, please let me know, and then you can unmute yourself. Do you have any questions? Mondli, on your side?
No, on my side, no questions, but thankfully for the presentation by Dr. Padalka in terms of summing up what is really, really important when it comes to incubation and businesses, as well as how encryption as well play a huge part in making sure that our businesses not only just strive, but when they're in these spaces, they're able, as a business owner, you're able to see where you can be supported, and looking at the history as well of incubation, like you shared as well, in terms of how we can look as internet society, the incubation side of those who are, looking for grants as well as doing businesses and looking forward to maybe starting internet businesses in their near future as well. Yeah, but yeah, thankfully for the well-presented presentation, Dr. Padalka, for that, and thank you for coming as well.
I think we've got a question amongst the young people who are joining us. You can start by introducing yourself, which organization you're from, and your question.
Good morning once again. Good morning once again. My name is Geronimo Blessed, and I'm here in Soweto Safe Hub as well. I would also like to ask, since you were talking about this incubation, I think it's a big opportunity this side, because of that information is kind of a little bit rare and on this side. So I think would it be a possible discussion that we bring that initiate into this side, and then we planted this side as much as you already planted in Durban, and I believe that can work out just as fine. Would there be something that can be done?
When you say this side, you mean Johannesburg, Soweto in particular?
Yeah, Soweto is Johannesburg, Soweto.
So, yes. Doctor, to give you some context, we have a multi-purpose center that was built by the city of Johannesburg, where young people have access to internet and computers. There's a lab and there's a shared working space.
Yes, in fact, that's the ideal infrastructure to operate from. And we will, in fact, the visit will work both ways. On our next visit to Johannesburg, we're happy to drop in an email and plan a trip to that multi-purpose center, or to engage with the Internet Society of South Africa through the Internet Society of South Africa. And the need cannot be underestimated. It is extremely vital that actually, this needs to be taken to every ward. I've always maintained that we need to have a BizFarm in every ward. The question then arises, how do we do that? Because if it's got to be via government, then it operates through a certain structure. But if it's totally private, it has to have certain investors. The then question, therefore, is that it needs to be taken up by the people themselves. We need entrepreneurs who can then say, yes, we want to start this here in our area. And that proposal that you made today in the form of a question is nothing but that, because it has to come from the people, that the need has to first be reflected by the people of a particular ward or a district. And then we take it from there. Because in our experience, when we have these entrepreneurs coming to us, they do not come from very far off areas. They come from nearby areas, or some of them do come from areas which are further away, but they come to us at BizFarm in the Glenwood because they do not have access to certain services in the far off areas. And therefore, we're very open to the idea of operating, of taking a look at your multipurpose center and making suggestions on how you can take it forward. And the youth need to come forward to take this forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. What we'll do is maybe share details. If you don't mind just sharing details where you can be reached and contacted by the entrepreneurs and young people that are here. And then maybe that way you can, bounce around ideas and tell them when you are going to visit them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you once again, and have a good day.
All righty. So for those attending the session, we'll make sure that in the recording, we just flash the details for BizFarm in Durban. Thank you again for the lovely presentation. According to our program, we have a break. May I ask that maybe we do the break up until 12, and then at 12, we can have our final speaker, Mr. Athan Malambo from MYCOZA, who will be talking to us about encryption in DNS and how to secure our domains and so forth.
15 years, for about the last 15 years. And to a large extent, for those of you that are familiar with domain names or own a domain name for your company or for your, for whatever particular purpose, understands that domains basically are the epicenter when it comes to encoding and security, in the sense that one of the first places that are going to be hacked, or compromised would be your email addresses, and your email addresses are basically linked up to your domain name. So for those of you that are familiar with encryption and or have a basic understanding of encryption, you'll understand that a lot of encryption and security mechanisms apply when it comes to the domain side of things, or the domain name industry. So with that, there's something that has been plaguing the industry when it comes to encryption and security for since the inception, since technology became as prevalent as it is, and especially as fast-paced as it is, that the big problem with encryption globally and security is that it's like kicking a bucket further down the road, meaning that there is no solution, absolute solution. Encryption evolves as technology evolves. So basically, encryption is a little bit ahead of what is produced out there. And when I say it's a little bit ahead, meaning that technologically, a lot of the hackers are a little bit more advanced. They're looking for flaws. They're outthinking us, So by the time, a new format of encryption is incorporated or conceived, these hackers have moved on. Encryption has evolved relating to, I almost said the dark web, but that's where a lot of things happen. That's where a lot of technology exchange takes place. But basically on new methods, so technology is constantly, encryption is constantly, or legitimate encryption is constantly catching up, having to play catch up, meaning that it's always literally one step behind. It's never in front. Okay, and that's what makes vulnerability so possible. So encryption is a massive thing. relating to any communications device, whether it's domain names, whether it's your mobile devices and things like that, encryption plays a key role. Everybody has understood that, you know what, it's impossible to remember all your passwords, your banking passwords, your phone passwords, you know, and when you get logged out or you need to reset your passwords, it's a problem. So to a large extent, encryption itself is problematic because it takes back, you know, technology is there to make our world more efficient, but yet encryption, securing the technology, is actually making us less efficient. So now, you know, before we can move at large spaces, you know, or paces, we find ourselves bogged down. And bogged down with having to implement new kinds of encryption security technologies, bogged down by the time it takes to reset passwords, by the confusion, by the complexities of having to safeguard our digital assets, and whether those digital assets are our digital bank accounts or whether our company's websites or whether our email accounts, they're all digital assets. But securing these digital assets or making them less vulnerable is literally becoming a problem in and of itself. Okay, so the bottom line is that, you know, if we look at it from a technological perspective, look, more technology is going to roll out. You guys are going to have to remember more passwords, harder passwords. So it doesn't make it efficient. It's just absolutely inefficient as we implement more patch solutions for security. Okay, so the reality is that is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Meaning that, you know what, is it actually viable to have all these mechanisms of security and encryption when you can't, you're so busy and spending money on it and dealing with it operationally, you can't run your business? You know, the idea about banking is to be quick, efficient, you know, easy transfers. Encryption does not make it easier. Encryption can be a bottleneck. And the more encryption, the greater the operational bottlenecks, meaning that you are becoming less efficient, you know, business-wise or personal-wise or economic-wise, because you have to deal with all these different elements of encryption. That's sad news, and that's a reality as it is, you know. As I said, that's one of the reasons why the security and encryption industry is constantly playing catch up. And with that, I do think that one of the things that do play a part in changing things for the future is now the onset and the implementation of AI. You know, AI now basically has the capacity not to overtake, but basically to catch up. Meaning that as new forms of penetration are developed, okay, AI will allow for the ability to catch up with the development, not overtake it, but just play catch up with it. Meaning that moving forward, we would be able to see more efficient forms of encryption coming out, okay, and more applicable forms, in the sense that, you know what, you, with the advance of AI, you might not need to remember all these different passwords for every single device, okay, because your personal AI would be able to do that for you. So all you might need to do is to be able, if your personal AI recognizes your voice tone, recognizes your eye iris when you look at it, and say, hello, Alexa, or whatever the case may be, you would have been verified, and through that verification, you would have access. Now, I'm basically just, I'm talking now about augmented reality as it comes to encryption. I'm just trying to predict the future that doesn't exist yet. But basically, it is safe to say that to a large extent, AI might, and that might is a very big probability, have the solution in order for us to move forward and not bypassing security elements. You must remember something, you know, as technology advances, one of the things about encryption and security protocols, you know, that they usually, as I said, they're mitigating what already exists. So because they're mitigating what already exists, to a large extent, they are finding loopholes, okay? And those loopholes basically allow for technology, legitimate technology, to improve, okay? So meaning that the negative is actually not a negative. The negative has positive evolutionary elements in it based in technology, you know? So the negative will never go away. In order for technology to evolve, you need hackers. You need people constantly trying to penetrate the system. You know, the only thing, as I said, is that we are so far behind that it's impeding on our capacity to be efficient. Okay. However, it's a byproduct of the human nature, the good and the bad, you know, but now the good would at least be able to, with AI, to be able to catch up with the bad. And with that, you know, I don't want to dwell into the technicalities of encryption and the different kinds of encryption formats, you know, because that, I think for the majority of the audience, that's pretty useless. The idea of encryption, basically, for anyone sitting and watching this is, how does encryption impact my life day to day? How does it impact? I can tell you this much: if you've got a mobile phone, yes, it impacts your life. When they tell you you need to reset your password, it impacts your life. When you need to make a transfer and there's a problem with the bank, it impacts your life. Chances are it's not the technology that's the problem, but it's the encryption, the validation protocols that are causing these kind of issues. And they impact your economic and social efficiency. So, even though it might be something considered hidden in the background, it is still the format relating to, or the greatest format relating to efficiency moving forward. Okay, with that, I'm not going to bore you guys too much. But if anybody has any questions, I will open it up for questions for anyone. Any questions? Cody, I think if you can hear me, I'm not too sure what's happening with, I can't hear anybody. Are there any questions?
No, we can hear you, Athan, and yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I like the part where you just sprung into creative mode about the argumentative reality of encryption. So this was kind of like, you know, aha moment on how we can look into the future and look at how, you know, things that are changing, especially when it comes to technology. Like you mentioned, technology is always evolving. You know, it's one of the sectors that are evolving each and every time when we go into the internet and looking at what sort of things that have been created. And the faster, you know, the technology creation and innovation also needs us as well to think outside of the box. And yeah, I think what you've shared with us right now really turned into something that is worth thinking of as well. Thank you.
No, you're more than welcome, Monday, and you are right that the idea of augmented, you know, we have to augment. We have to be able to see into the future, you know, with what we have, in order to try and build systems to mitigate that future, that the negative element of what the future might hold, you know. So, and I think that to a large extent, a lot of that framework, you know, when it comes to technology is dependent on us to visualize, you know, you might call it fantasize, but let's just use visualize a future of what can be, you know. And that's why I address that, you know what, nobody must think that for 1 second because they can't see the encryption happening in the background that it doesn't impact their lives. Yes, it does. You know what I mean? When you can't make that transfer, you know, and you've got the service provider on your back, it impacts your life, you know? So, yeah, with that, look, we can go into a number of different formats for people, but I mainly wanted to deal with what impacts people's lives that they're not realizing how and why it's important, you know, and the struggles and the fights going in and the background and how people are thinking by trying to solve these solutions relating to our frustrations, you know what I mean, when it comes to technology.
Well, yes, thank you so much. So this brings us to, yeah, one of the most exciting things as well in terms of questions and answers session, or any general thoughts that you have with the session of global encryption. We're also just going to share, you know, a link by GED just to look at what do they have as well in terms of global encryption day. I'm just going to share it on the chat as well. If you still want to know more about how you can get involved as well with this particular celebration in all, you know, the years that global encryption as well will be, you know, happening. So it's on the chat. So please do share with us any chat or questions if you do have. Kodishang there at Soweto. Okay, I can see on the chat as well, Mohau is asking, you know, good day, thank you for a wonderful presentation throughout. My question is, how can businesses ensure their online addresses, mostly the domain, is secured and protected from cyberbullying? Athan, I'm not sure if you want to take maybe that question, or is there anyone here as well in terms of can share that? There's a question on the chat.
Yeah, that's let me jump into that relating to securing a domain name.
Yeah.
Look, the standard process or practice when it comes to securing a domain name for business, almost anything, is SSL. Okay, we call it secure socket layers. Now, sometimes when you go to a website online, you will see sometimes in the right hand corner, or in the left hand corner, the far left hand corner, just before you get the name of the company. Okay, if you run your mouse over it, it will actually say that, indicate there with a little icon that this domain is secure. Okay, if it's got a X on it, if it's got an X, you'll see that, you know what, it will, and you run your mouse over the X, it will say that this domain is unsecure. So those are SSL certificates, you know what I mean, that most domains now, it's literally become mandatory relating to Google for all domain names to have SSL secure certificates with them. So that's relating to domain names. Specifically, you get different kinds of SSL certificates. You know, you get branded, unbranded, but mainly it indicates that the website, you know, basically is secured by encryption. Okay. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, thank you so much, Ethan, for the just a bit more how I've shared some of the you know description as well on SSL certification or certificate when it comes to, you know, securing your website. As also one of the things that we can add is that when you are building a website, you're buying a domain in companies like MYCOZA, and also when you're setting up your website, there's other, let's say maybe you're setting up on Joomla or maybe WordPress. There will be plugins as well that you need to put in as well to make sure that every transition, because you'll be taking people's information, you know, that website in terms of being Googled is also, you know, secured for people to trust it, that they can actually put their information there and the information is safe. So very, very important to, and secure your website. And yeah, it has become a standard thing right now when it comes to creation as well. So I'm not sure, there's a question as well. I'm currently experiencing challenges that our business website has been hacked the past 2 weeks. What are the easy way to retrieve it? And has been blocked by Google. Athan, on that part, Athan, sorry, yeah. To add again,
are you going to leave that to me, Mandi?
Yeah, I'm going to leave that to you. How can he retrieve his website? It's been hacked for the past 2 weeks, and yeah, and this has been blocked by Google. Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now you'll understand the importance of making sure that when your website is hacked, basically you're dealing with a CMS, meaning that you're actually dealing. The website itself was not custom coded; it was built on a CMS, usually something like Joomla, WordPress, Drupal, or something of that kind. That's what makes it vulnerable, because it's a program on its own. It makes it vulnerable to attacks like this. Okay, so look, it depends. To clean up a hack depends on the severity of the hack, because once the hack has penetrated the database of the website or the CMS, it's not going to be. You'll probably have be able to save more money actually rebuilding the site from the ground up, than cleaning up a hack that's that severe, and it might actually be so severe it's not retrievable. A way out basically is to get a hold of your internet service provider and find out if what the latest backup was of that website. But before they reinstall that backup, if they do have a latest backup of the website, before they reinstall it for you, make sure that they just run an antivirus system on that server to clean up any residual infection. So that's very important. So you want to make sure that the environment is sterilized before you run a new backup of the website. But yeah, it depends on the severity of the hack. The best people to contact your hosting service provider. They will be able to help you out. They'll be able to look at it and assess it for you, because you do need an assessment of the damage done. It might be very mild, and if it's a mild hack, it could be resolved in a couple of minutes flat. So if you don't know how to go about the assessment, there are websites online that can do that assessment for you and give you steps, the recommendation steps. Alternatively, your best bet is to get a hold of your hosting service provider. They will help you. They don't want to lose you as a client, you know what I mean? So they will jump in and at least be able to advise you on how to resolve the problem and take it forward.
Thank you, Athan, for that, and yeah, very important to understand the differences. Yes, Mohau, I think with your hosting provider can actually help you with that, like Athan has said, and hopefully your website is back online, and all the the pros and cons of getting a very, very good functionable responsive website for your clients as well. And knowing all that needs to be done can go, hand in hand with your, communication online as well. So if there's any other further questions, I will bring back Kodishang to just give us a close of, the session. And we gratefully thank you all for just attending the Global Encryption Day this year. And we'll be doing this again next year as well when it comes to celebrating this day and just making sure that people understand how encryption in our lifetime in terms of the internet and the services that we're using can actually be beneficial for our businesses and also our identity going forward.
Thank you very much, Mondli. And again, I'd like to thank all the wonderful speakers that we had. This recording will be shared on our social media. It will be shared on YouTube. The resources will be shared. And let's make this an encryption day of action. Let's make 2020, let's secure our communities starting from today, headed into 2025. Let's unite and pull resources together. Previous speakers from BizFarm told us about opportunities of business incubation for technology, opportunities of becoming email practitioners to help businesses secure their emails. FN also touched on opportunities of future-proofing the systems that we have and how AI could be a functional tool for encryption, not only to break it, but to strengthen it. We also heard from Roland explaining how we could encrypt our emails using email clients like Thunderbird and so forth. But I just want the key takeaways from today's session to be where to find the tools to safeguard yourself. So all the links that were also shared in the chats, we will include them as part of the report. And we hope that you stay safe and you keep your family safe and you keep your children safe. There's a growing discussion in the community about increasing the screen age, meaning to say, what age do young kids get to use devices and tablets? You know, I think as a chapter, we'll also unpack that hopefully before the end of the year, because in December, people use devices in different ways, and we hope that we can further empower parents when it comes down to safeguarding their kids. So with that said, again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for attending this Global Encryption Day with us. And we hope that you have a lovely day and a beautiful week ahead of you. Thank you very much.